Have you ever had someone judge you based on nothing more than your appearance? Imagine being in the midst of a confrontation on a flight with everything at stake, and the only thing standing between you and a catastrophe is your ability to stay calm and fight back. Well, that's exactly what happened to me when a racist passenger tried to have me removed from the flight, but she had no idea who she was messing with. If you think stories like these are important to share, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. And if you feel this story could inspire others, make sure to share it with your friends. Let's spread the word and remind people that standing up for yourself is always the right choice. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, in a brief moment, truth and justice were laid bare so powerfully that it left you in shock? That feeling when you not only stand up for yourself, but you also teach someone a valuable lesson about respect and fairness. This is the story I want to share with you today. One ordinary day, I was on a flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles after a grueling cybersecurity conference. As an FBI special agent specializing in cybercrime, my work isn't easy, and a long flight back after a stressful week was the perfect opportunity to unwind. However, something completely unexpected happened that made me realize that sometimes justice isn't only served in courtrooms or boardrooms. It can unfold in midair, right on a commercial flight. As I settled into my seat, 12A, ready for a peaceful journey, I had no idea that the woman sitting behind me was about to turn the entire flight into a drama of shocking racial discrimination. This story isn't just a personal experience. It's a powerful reminder about patience, justice, and the importance of standing up for yourself in any situation. The tension builds. The moment Karen had made those blatant accusations, I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I refused to let her see it. As she stood there, her eyes narrowed with disdain, I reminded myself of my purpose. This wasn't just about defending myself. It was about showing her, and everyone else around, that judgment based on stereotypes would not fly with me. At first, I tried to remain calm and patient. After all, I had my boarding pass, my seat assignment, and I knew the airline system would back me up. But Karen wasn't having any of it. No, she was convinced that I had stolen her seat, because it was too much for her entitled mind to accept that someone like me could occupy a premium seat. And that's when things took a sharp turn from a minor inconvenience to an escalating battle of wills. The flight attendant, a young man with a gentle smile, approached, offering to help. His voice was calm, a stark contrast to Karen's shrill demands. He asked her to show him her boarding pass, but Karen, already in a state of frenzy, snapped, "I don't care about your manifest. I'm telling you this woman stole my seat." Her voice pierced through the cabin, and the passengers' attention shifted. The whispers started. Some people glanced toward me, some stared at her, but everyone was watching this unfold. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a cocktail of frustration and embarrassment building. But I wasn't going to let this woman take control of my narrative. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and remained composed. "Ma'am," I said as calmly as I could manage, "I boarded with pre-boarding privileges. I've been sitting here since I boarded. My seat is 12A. Would you like to double-check your boarding pass?" Karen didn't take a step back. Instead, she crossed her arms, and her eyes, those eyes, scanned me like I was some kind of criminal. She probably thought I didn't even know how to read a boarding pass. "You probably can't even read your boarding pass," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "People like you don't belong here, let alone in premium economy." Her words were a slap in the face, but I held my composure. Every part of me wanted to react, to say something sharp in return, but I knew that would play into her hands. She wanted a fight. She wanted a scene, and she wasn't going to get one from me. But I couldn't let it slide either. This was beyond a misunderstanding. It was racism, pure and simple. The audacity of her to look me up and down, as if my seat and my right to be there were up for debate, was sickening. I didn't let her see the effect it had on me. Instead, I turned to the flight attendants again, trying to offer another way out for her, an out she would never take. "Would you like me to call a flight attendant to verify?" I suggested, hoping it would be the push she needed to de-escalate. "No," Karen sneered, shaking her head as though I were beneath her. "You're a liar. I'm not going to let you get away with this. I could see the passengers around us now, their eyes flickering between Karen and me. Some were already holding their phones, ready to record whatever chaos was about to unfold. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, the crowd growing impatient as the scene dragged on. But I wasn't backing down. "Ma'am," I said again, forcing my voice to stay steady. "If you'd like, I can show you my boarding pass and we can get the flight attendants involved. But accusing me of stealing your seat is completely unfounded and unnecessary." Karen wasn't hearing a word of it. She wasn't interested in finding the truth. She was more interested in being the loudest person in the room, in controlling the narrative, and in putting me in my place. That's when the shrill voice hit its peak. "Get her off the plane. She stole my seat. I paid for this and I won't let this thief ruin my flight." Now people were clearly starting to feel the tension. A few passengers glanced my way, some offering sympathetic looks, while others seemed to enjoy the drama unfolding in front of them. But Karen's ramping up was starting to take a toll. The flight attendants had been trying to mediate from a distance, but at this point, they couldn't ignore it any longer. Two of them arrived near us, their faces showing a mix of concern and exasperation. They tried to reason with Karen, their voices calm, explaining that they could easily verify everything via the flight manifest. But Karen wasn't interested in that. "No, no," she interrupted, her voice now even louder. "This woman doesn't belong here. She's probably some criminal trying to get a free ride." I could feel my patience slipping. This was beyond my control now. I knew I had to act. I needed to stop this before it escalated even further. If I didn't, the situation could spiral completely out of hand, disrupting the flight and ruining my peaceful trip home. So I did what I had to do, the decisive intervention and firm action. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I knew that the time for patience had passed. Karen's behavior was becoming more erratic, and I could see the growing tension in the cabin. People were now fully tuned in, eyes glued to the scene unfolding before them. The murmurs and whispers filled the air. Each new glance from a passenger fueled her outrage even more. The flight attendants, trying their best to de-escalate the situation, were being ignored. This was no longer a misunderstanding. This was about something far deeper and more personal. As Karen's shrill voice continued to pierce through the cabin, demanding my removal from the flight, I felt the heat rising in my chest. My hands trembled slightly, but I had to remain composed. I couldn't allow this woman's ignorance to ruin my journey. After all, I wasn't just any passenger. I was an FBI special agent trained for moments like this. The thought struck me like a bolt of lightning. Why not end this now on my terms? I could no longer let her make baseless accusations about me, a professional who had earned her seat just like anyone else. It was time to stop being passive, time to stop trying to reason with someone who had no interest in logic or fairness. I reached for my bag and unzipped the inner compartment where I kept my credentials. The motion was deliberate, slow, ensuring that she would see exactly what I was doing. As my hand closed around my FBI badge, I held it up for everyone to see. I watched as Karen's eyes immediately locked onto it, her expression shifting from one of superiority and entitlement to a ghostly pallor. For a brief moment, she froze, her mouth opened, but no words came out. I wasn't sure if she was more shocked by the sudden revelation or the realization that she had been utterly wrong. "Ma'am," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I am Special Agent Eve Carter with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I suggest you lower your voice and stop making false accusations immediately." The impact of my words was immediate and palpable. The once bustling cabin fell into an eerie silence. You could almost hear a pin drop as all eyes turned to Karen. The flight attendants who had been scrambling to control the situation suddenly stood still, unsure of how to react, but there was a noticeable sense of relief in their posture. I continued, not allowing her a chance to recover. "I have already presented my valid boarding pass for seat 12A to the gate agent and to your crew. Your unfounded accusations are not only disruptive to this flight but could also be legally actionable. Impersonating a federal agent, making false accusations, and disrupting air travel are all serious offenses. I could see the mental gears turning in Karen's mind as the weight of the situation hit her. Gone was the smug confidence she had exuded moments earlier. Her face drained of color, and her posture sagged. She now seemed like a person who had just realized she had made the worst mistake of her life. I couldn't help but feel a slight sense of satisfaction. This was the moment I had been waiting for, when she finally realized she had messed with the wrong person. Karen stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. But I wasn't about to let her off the hook so easily. I suggest you find your seat and refrain from further harassment, I said, my voice unwavering. If this behavior continues, I will have no choice but to contact the authorities when we land in Los Angeles. By now, the flight attendants had regained some composure, and one of them gently approached Karen. "Ma'am, let me help you find your seat," he said, his voice soothing, but there was a new authority to it. Karen, now visibly deflated, nodded without protest. Her once confident stance was gone, replaced by a submissive demeanor. She shuffled to her seat, head bowed, and the tension in the cabin began to lift. The moment was surreal, like a weight had been lifted off everyone's shoulders. People began to return to their books, movies, and quiet conversations, as if nothing had happened. The drama that had threatened to derail the entire flight was over. And in the aftermath, I was left with a quiet sense of triumph. Not just because I had stood my ground, but because I had forced someone like Karen to face the consequences of her actions. As Karen slinked off to her seat, I allowed myself a brief moment of satisfaction. The universe, it seemed, had offered up a perfect little dose of karma. For as Karen made her way to the back of the plane, her expensive handbag slipped from her shoulder and crashed to the floor, scattering its contents all over the aisle. Her designer sunglasses went flying, her makeup compact shattered, and her passport landed several feet away. I could see it all from my seat, and I couldn't suppress the small, smug smile that crept across my face. It was a small thing, I know, but in that moment it felt like justice had been served. A woman who had tried to belittle me, make false accusations, and publicly humiliate me had just tripped on the very entitlement that she so proudly wore. It was almost as if the universe was saying, "You messed with the wrong person, and now, here's your punishment." I turned my attention back to the book in my hands, but I couldn't help but steal a glance at Karen as she scrambled to collect her belongings. She didn't make eye contact with me once for the rest of the flight, her head bowed in shame. I almost felt sorry for her, but then I remembered the words she had hurled at me, the accusations that had been based solely on the color of my skin. My sympathy evaporated quickly. After a few moments, the flight attendant who had tried to intervene earlier came back over. He apologized profusely for the inconvenience and thanked me for handling the situation so effectively. As a token of appreciation, he offered me a complimentary drink, which I gratefully accepted. A double Chardonnay this time. I figured I had earned it. The rest of the flight passed without incident. I finished my book, enjoyed the surprisingly decent in-flight entertainment, and even managed to catch a few hours of sleep. I kept my eye on Karen, though. She was seated several rows behind me in coach, looking thoroughly miserable, but she didn't try to make a scene. For once, her entitled attitude had met its match. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, I saw Karen once more as she made her way off the plane. The sight of her tripping over her own handbag, scrambling to gather her things, made me smile. It wasn't just karma. It was the sweet satisfaction of knowing that a person who had tried to make me feel inferior had finally been put in her place. But the story didn't end there. A few days later, I received an email from the airline. They had investigated the incident, and it turned out that Karen had indeed made a mistake. She had booked seat 12B, not 12A. The airline offered me a voucher for a future flight and even apologized for the inconvenience. It seemed that the flight attendant had overheard Karen boasting about trying to get me thrown off the plane and had reported it when he got the chance. In the end, it was a perfect conclusion to a truly absurd experience. The final lesson and moving on. As the days passed, I couldn't help but reflect on the incident. While it had been an exhausting experience, it had also taught me something important. Something deeper than just standing up to a racist Karen. This wasn't just about my personal triumph. It was about the power of representation and the importance of breaking down stereotypes. For me, as a Black woman in law enforcement, these kinds of encounters are more than just isolated incidents. Every time I wear my badge, every time I step into a room, I am not just representing myself. I'm representing the idea that we all deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of our race, background, or appearance. And that goes beyond just the workplace. It's a lesson that extends to every aspect of life. We cannot let prejudice go unchecked. We cannot allow people to make assumptions about us based on how we look, where we come from, or what they think we deserve. I've been through enough microaggressions and discrimination to know that this isn't a one-off experience. But I also know that standing up for myself, not just with Karen, but in every moment, creates space for others to do the same. If I can be the example that shows other women, particularly women of color, that it's okay to assert yourself, to challenge injustice, then the experience was worth it. And then there's the airline's response. It was reassuring to know that they took the matter seriously and conducted their own investigation. But the fact that they issued me a voucher, apologized for the inconvenience, and acknowledged Karen's behavior was a small victory in itself. It reinforced the idea that when we speak up, when we take action, there are systems that can hold people accountable. And those systems matter, whether it's a flight attendant who does the right thing, a company that takes responsibility, or just the collective support of the passengers around us. That being said, I was ready to move on. I wasn't going to let Karen, or anyone like her, steal any more of my mental energy. This was just one chapter in my life. I had a job to do, an FBI career to continue building, and a responsibility to my community to show up every day as the professional that I am. But I also felt a sense of duty to keep telling stories like these, stories that can spark conversation and maybe, just maybe, change the way people think. The more we share our experiences, the more we normalize the idea that we all deserve respect, no matter who we are or what we do. As the days went by, I found myself reflecting on the idea of karma. It's a funny thing. Sometimes it comes in the form of dropped handbags, shattered sunglasses, or a series of humbling lessons. But in the end, it's a reminder that actions have consequences, and that even when we think we've gotten away with something, the universe has a way of putting things back into balance. For me, this experience has left me with one simple takeaway. Always be prepared to defend yourself, to challenge the status quo, and to demand the respect you deserve. I won't let anyone define me, no matter their assumptions or prejudices. And I hope that for those of you who are listening to my story, you'll carry that same message with you too. And so, the flight continued on its way to Los Angeles. The tension in the cabin had finally eased, and I could feel the sense of peace return to the space. I knew this story would stick with me for a while, probably longer than I would like. But it was a story that needed to be told. If it could help someone else stand their ground in a moment of discrimination, or if it could remind people that we all have a responsibility to be better toward each other, then I was willing to share it. So, to all those reading or watching this, remember, don't let anyone define your worth. Don't let anyone dictate your place in this world. And most importantly, never back down when you know you're right. Because if you stand up for yourself, the universe has a funny way of making sure that karma will catch up with those who deserve it. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of this crazy story. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to hear more stories like this, or get more insights into life, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a post. Also, share this video with your friends who might need to hear this important lesson about standing up for what's right and fighting prejudice. Let's spread some positivity and raise awareness together. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear your experiences or how you'd have handled a situation like this. Stay vigilant, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next one.